Hello, what going on? This is Between Two Palms, the podcast. Welcome to episode 1, Barber Chair Confessions from Fade to Freedom. This is my first podcast, no edits, no fancy mics, just me, Jazzie, standing behind the barber chair in Barbados, telling you the real story of how I transitioned from Jazzie the barber to Jazzie the coach, coaching the mindset, coaching method called the Enlifted coaching method. Here goes. I am Jazzie, and for the past 15 plus years, I've been known as Jazzie the barber, and I would have spent, my profession as a barber using tools like these to shape the hairstyles of all of my clients. And when you've been doing something for so very long, you get to be good at it. And besides having the trust of individuals to be in charge of their haircut and hairstyle appearance, I've also been blessed to have the opportunity to have them trust me with sharing what's on their minds more often than not. I used to think that, people come to the barbershop mostly, to improve how they appear and to shape their hair or their beards or their eyebrows or, anything that will enhance how they look. But I've also grown to recognize that people choose their barber in some instances because of the level of safety and comfort that they have when they enter the presence of a good barber. And that's what I consider myself as. And because I'm a good barber, I've had the opportunities for people to share with me many things, many stories. I've stand here in a similar position as this, and with tools similar to these, over the years it would have changed and evolved. And what I recognize is that regardless of who people are in their professions, and I've had lawyers and doctors and teachers and truck drivers and a whole spectrum of professions, regardless of how people identify professionally, one thing for sure is that there's always something on their minds. There's always something going through their thoughts that at some point in time, is causing them to feel frustrated, causing them to feel overwhelmed, or stressed. And, in some instances, there's usually a past hurt or something that has occurred that in the past that they're still somehow, feeling emotional about in some form or fashion. That experience of the past or the experience that they're currently going through and on their mind is still impacting how they are feeling in this present moment. And yes, you would spend a half hour or so, and I would shape their hair, and they would look in the mirror 99.9% times, very pleased, or at least pleased with what they've received as a haircut. But even though I absolutely enjoyed that aspect of it, after all, doing something 15 years and still planning to do it for a little bit more means that I'm enjoying my skill set as being a barber. But there's a greater joy that comes when an individual, not only enjoys how they look, but after an exchange of words and conversation, you can tell that that individual is feeling so much later, or at least is now having a new perspective of what they would have first shared with me had it been a conversation that they shared something intimate, something that was on their mind, something that they were still processing, that they wanted to get off their chest or out their head so that they can get it off. And in the past, in my younger barbering years, I would have mostly just listened, and if I resonated with the story, shared my opinion. But now, going on for the past almost 4 years, I've been skilled with the tools of the Enlifted coaching method. And you've heard me speak about this in in the past, if you've seen any of my other shares, you know that I often talk about being an enlifted coach. And what that means that as an enlifted coach, I focus specifically on the word choice that my clients are using to tell me what they're experiencing. Now, the stories that my clients share with me are not just stories. You know, they are stories that are filled with words and speech patterns. And because of the acquired knowledge that I've gained as a result of becoming a certified Enlifted coach, I get to pick up on little nuances, and now I'm much more skilled to offer insights that they themselves may not have recognized, it's actually happening. And because my clients value me and they're comfortable to share with me what's going on with them, and I now have this skill set, my clients get a much more, enjoyable experience having me as their barber. You see, when we experience events in our lives and those events get stored in our mind, whatever is the emotion attached to that story also gets stored in the mind. So if you experience something that is causing you to, be upset, you store that emotional state to that story, and every time you relive that story, you're going to go through that emotional state. So what I've found is with the Enlifted tools, when I obviously always ask for permission, but when I share with my clients the Enlifted tools and I help them to recognize, what words they're using to shape and tell me what they're experiencing, and I help them to see that if they continue to speak about what they are currently experiencing or have experienced in the past using those specific word choices, then how they currently feel about what they have experienced in the past will remain the same. And on the walls of my barbershop, I would have some of my Enlifted method definitions, and there's, you can't see, but over there's soft talk. There's a definition of soft talk, and there's a definition of the victim mentality, and there's a definition of abracadabra, and the definition of what a spell is, with abracadabra being an Aramaic word, which means with my word I create and with my word I influence, and spell being from the Webster's dictionary, a word or a combination of word of great influence, even held to have magical power. Now, those are not my definitions; those are dictionary definitions. And when you understand that, with your words you are creating and having an influence over your life, and with your word combinations you are creating spells over your life, you get to recognize that things said aren't just things said. Things you say to yourself, your internal dialogue, that conversation that you're consistently having with yourself, are not just words. You are consistently, in some form or fashion, influencing yourself to feel how you're currently feeling. And if you repeat the same narrative to yourself and it doesn't have a positive outcome or outlook, it doesn't make you feel as if you are empowered in the moment, if it doesn't make you feel as if you can take positive action going forward, then you remain stuck. And the thing about being stuck is that an individual can stay stuck in a story pattern or in a belief for years on end, because time does not apply to the emotional body. We all have an emotional body. That's where all those stories are stored in our mind. Yeah, time does not apply to the emotional body. So if you keep the same thought pattern happening and you repeat that thought pattern to yourself, then you will go on staying in that emotional state without having any resolution. Luckily for me, once again, because of being an Enlifted coach and having the tools that the Enlifted coaching method taught me, I no longer have to hear stories and just accept the version of stories that my clients tell me. And sometimes they resonate to the point where I too would have gone through similar experiences. I use those Enlifted coaching method tools on myself to reframe and reinterpret any and all experiences that I don't enjoy mentally and emotionally. And that helps me to have a pleasant personality more often than not, because I'm not perfect, I'm still a work in progress. That helps me to find ways to, deregulate when I too experience moments of stress and overwhelm and frustration. But because I have the tools and I practice them on myself and with myself, I feel confident to help share those tools with others so that they too can have a go-to toolkit when it comes to their mental and emotional well-being. So I'm saying all of this to drive home the point. Even though I use the tools of barbering to shape the hairstyles and the appearance of my clients, I'm also very skilled and very happy to have within my arsenal of tools the Enlifted coaching method skill sets that allows me to help individuals to reshape the story that is going on in their minds that is causing them hurt, pain, frustration, or to relive in a frustrated or hurtful way any past event. And I'm able to help my clients to resolve those challenges so that they can enjoy who they are much more. I absolutely enjoy this aspect of my work as a barber and as a coach, because I not only do my barbering, I also share, this same, comfort level of the barber's chairs type of experience where an individual could sit across from me, either in person or over a Zoom screen, and I give those interactions the same type of energy where I listen intently to what my clients are sharing with me, and where I give them an opportunity to experience the Enlifted coaching method and all of its tools, so that even though they're not shaping their haircut in the moment, they're shaping their minds and they're reshaping how they think about what they are currently experiencing. Because when we don't find ways to improve how we feel mentally and how we experience ourselves, and when we don't find ways to resolve, all of the thoughts that are consistently going on in our minds, mostly on loop, the same repetitive, same set of thoughts that is causing us to not be our best selves, to not show up ideally in, what we tend to term my ideal self, or the best version of myself, which is the term that is often used. When we are not able to do that as much as we want to and as often as we want to, then we get to experience less of what this joyful experience of life can bring. When you feel light, when you're breathing well, when you know that regardless of what is in front of you, you can still be enjoy in the moment, then that gives you such a feeling of happiness and such a feeling of empoweredness when you don't get stuck in the victim mentality where you feel as if unless somebody else's makes a different choice, you're going to remain stuck feeling how you feel. That's a sad state to be in, to be stuck in a victim mentality where you are still upset at the characters that played a part in the story of the past. whether or not you are still experiencing this, the physical impact that occurred whenever that occurred, if there was a physical impact, or if you are still experiencing the same level of emotional intensity due to your memory of the event. If you're going to, be in a mental place where those villains of the stories in your mind are still there impacting you every time you recall what has occurred, and you have decided that your emotional state is so valid, and you would rather stay there as opposed to do something about it, that's no way to enjoy being yourself. That's no way to enjoy the best that life can offer. If you want to experience freedom from that victim mentality, then we first have to recognize that, once again, it's the thought pattern and the combination of words that you are using to describe what is causing the hurt, pain, or frustration that is impacting how you are experiencing your today moment. I remember a few years back, years ago, I didn't even have children yet. I was experiencing the memory of an interaction that was still getting to me, like I had an exchange, and I was recalling this exchange, and I was cleaning my car at the moment, and I had an accident while cleaning the car, and it broke off a very important piece, the trafficator switch. I broke that trafficator switch because I was allowing the memory of an exchange that I had with an individual to still impact me in the present moment. It's a memory of a past event that caused me hurt or frustration or anger. Whenever that had occurred in the past, I was allowing that past event to impact me today. And I didn't have the Enlifted coaching tools back then when that first occurred. But luckily, because of, my, over the years, continued personal development and working on myself. And back then, what I would have used was, my one of my favorite books, The 4 Agreements, which one of the agreements is to take nothing personally. And it took me some time after I had to resolve the emotions of the memory, and then resolve the fact that I allowed a past event to impact my today, and now I have a broken trafficator switch. And luckily I had that tool back then of not taking things personally, and I was able to get back to a relative calm and go on with the impact of the trafficator switch being broken, and then just accepting it as it is. You know what I mean? If that were to happen today, because I'm not exempt from the impact of my thoughts also impacting me negatively. If that were to happen today, I would do what I would do with a client. I would get from my head onto paper, either digitally or physically, the thoughts that were impacting me in the moment. I will write it down. That's the first step we do with the Enlifted coaching method. We get our thoughts from our head onto paper, digitally or physically. I would read that version of what I was experiencing to myself, and then I would slow down my rate of speech, which is another step of the Enlifted coaching method 4-step process. I will read it down about 70%, rate of speech, so that I can really feel the emotions that, of the story that I was experiencing. And then I would take a breath at the different punctuations within the story. And I know that process works so very well that I would be immediately relieved from any negative emotional state that I would be experiencing. That's the joy of the Enlifted coaching method. A good haircut and a good story cut, reshaping and reframing the haircut changes how you look in your physical appearance, but reshaping the edges of your hair, of your mental stories, also impacts how you feel. Both a good haircut and a good reframing of a story helps you to enjoy who you are much more. And sometimes just like how you gotta come back to the barbershop to reshape, your haircut. A haircut stays fresh for maybe 3 to 5 days, very, very sharp, but then your hair grows back. Sometimes, those memories, because you're not gonna forget the things of the past, will still come back to you. But with the elliptic coaching methods tools, what you get to do is to, apply those tools. You always have those tools in your mental toolkit to resolve any of those stories or experiences that you are not today enjoying. I love the Enlifted coaching method. I envision, just as my mentor, Mark England, who is one of the co-founders of this process. He has envisioned doing the Enlifted coaching for 50 years, and that's going to take him probably to his 80s. And being in my 40s right now, I want to do this for another 40 years too. I saw a video recently of a barber who is 100 plus, and he's still having the joy of giving good haircuts. And as I often share with my clients, I love barbering so much that even sometimes today I do this for free. I'm just happy that it pays me well enough to enjoy my personal life. But I love barbering so much that I would do this for free. I would do this into my future, even if not in a professional state where I'm doing it every single day. I still want to cut hair into my 50s and 60s and 70s, because I love cutting hair. But I also love helping individuals to feel better about themselves. I love giving, individuals the opportunities to experience new perspectives. That is one of the key aspects of the mental haircuts that I do. That's what the Enlifted coaching method does. It gives you an opportunity to experience new perspectives, because if you're staying stuck mentally and emotionally in places that cause you hurt, pain, or frustration, or you're reliving past events and still experiencing those emotional states as if they're occurring currently, that means that you're not giving yourself permission to see new perspectives. New perspectives allow you to see what else is possible, what else could be true. That is what new experiences does. New perspectives, does. When you give yourself permission to see what else could be true, what else this means about me, because that's what usually happens. You experience, an event, and if you're not in joy of the event, then you assign meaning to the story or the experience. And one of the meanings that you assign is, what does it mean about me? What does it mean about me that my boss is being such a beep beep, as you may say, or as my clients may express? What does it mean when my partner is saying things that are not necessarily accurate, even though they may be truth? What does it mean to me when I remember things that someone has said to me in the past and I'm still not pleased about today, even if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, from my childhood, or back at school, or on my first job, because I saw that person and now I'm triggered by that memory? What does it mean about me that these things are still bothering me? What does it mean about me when I'm not able to take action even though I know that the thing that I want to do can have a dramatic transformation to my life? Why am I still not taking action? What's inhibiting me from enjoying my experience of who I am? What's inhibiting me from really being enjoying? What's inhibiting me from showing up as my best version of myself? The one thing I can guarantee that is inhibiting you, because it inhibits me sometimes, is the story that I tell myself about myself, and what I am identifying as in the moment. Sometimes I don't always feel as confident. That's the truth. I don't escape. I am not insulated from negative thoughts. Sometimes I don't feel as confident. Sometimes I don't feel as confident in areas of my life that I know matter. I don't always feel as confident as a parent, father of two sons. That happens. I don't always feel as confident as being a husband. I don't always feel as confident being the oldest son of my mom who's still alive. I don't always feel as if I'm the best in those areas of my life that do matter, like being a parent, being a husband, being a father. Sometimes I don't always even think that I'm the best at being a friend. But because I have the tools of the Enlifted coaching method, I get to reframe those thoughts and get myself back into the best shape possible, so that I can at least take action. Every action I take doesn't always get me to my end goal, but it gets me a little bit closer, because whenever I allow my negative emotional states to impact me taking action, it impedes the quality of experience that I get to be as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a friend. When I don't use my tools, I regress the progress that I take for my personal development and wanting to be better in those areas of my life. So do I get to be a good husband? More often than not. Do I get to be a good father? More often than not. Do I get to show up as a professional coach and barber still? More often than not. And that's my aim for people to experience. I want you to get the opportunity of what it feels like to be winning more often than not, because this is planet Earth, and on this earth you're going to take some L's, but let your L's be lessons and not losses. Let your L's be opportunities to, even if you get knocked down, you get right back up. It's an absolute joy to have the tool sets, the tool kit of the Enlifted coaching method, and what it allows me to be able to do for myself, which is to reframe and reinterpret any story that I'm experiencing. And what is a mindset? A mindset is a story that you tell yourself about yourself. And what is that mindset made of? That mindset is made of words. And like I shared earlier, a spell is a combination of words held to have, great influence over how you're experiencing yourself. And abracadabra means with my words I create, and with my words I influence. It only then means that if I want to have a better experience of who I am, and I want to be able to take more actions and not procrastinate in life, and not feel overwhelmed and not feel stressed too often, then I have to positively cast spells on myself so that I can influence myself to take the right actions going forward, so that I can get unstuck, so that past hurts don't impact my happiness today and my today joys. Yeah, that is what the tools of the Enlifted method empowers me to be able to do, so that I can help my clients to take action on the goals that they want to achieve, so that they too can become unhinged and to be able to take action and not to be inhibited by the thoughts that they're experiencing, so that they can show up as great leaders, great parents, great professionals, so they could be the best lawyer, the best CEO, the best manager, the best teacher, the best mechanic, the best plumber, any profession that you have that you want to be the best at, you're always going to have thoughts of wonder, am I good enough to do this thing? Am I still good enough to do this thing? Am I still good enough to lead a team? Am I still good enough to lead myself? We all have those thoughts. And those thoughts are a combination of words, creating stories that you get to tell yourself and tell others, that either get you closer to where you want to be or takes you further away from ideally where you want to be. And in life, as long as you get to breathe well, you get to, take some ins and outs of breaths, then you want to be enjoyed. You want to experience happiness. You want to feel as if you are empowered. You want to feel light. You want to feel as if you can be the one who's in charge of at least who you are, the identity that you have of yourself. And that's what the Enlifted coaching method does. It empowers you to empower your identity so that you can take positive action, so that you can get more of what you want and less of what you don't want in your life. So that with your words you can create, and with your words that you can influence, so that you can cast positive spells over your entire being, so that life shows up for you and the experiences of life show up for you in your favor more often than not. Or at least you are able to swing the pendulum back in your favor when you want to, how you want to. I am Charles Jazzie Harper. I am a professional barber, and I'm also a professional coach. And I invite you to experience the tool sets that you get from having an Enlifted coach in your life. Now tell me, are you ready to get started? This is episode 1 of who I am and what I do, and I look forward to sharing more of this Enlifted coaching method, all of the tools and all of the different aspects of it and how it can enhance your lifestyle. And if you happen to be in Barbados and you're close to St. Philip and you want to book a haircut, for the next couple of years, I guarantee you I'll still be able to do that for you too. But with that, thanks for listening. Abracadabra, make today wonderful. Always on your side, I am Charles Jazzie Harper.